All right, so just to start out, what are your graduating years, current jobs, and how long have you been working?
My name is Jack Wheeler. I'm class of 2019. I'm a financial planner and advisor with Barnum Financial Group, and I've been doing that for a little under a year.
What's up, guys? Hope everyone's having a great morning. Josh Bernstein, class of 2015. Just saw Mr. Carey walk in. That's very exciting. I live in New York. I'm the head of business development at Orion Group, which is a private equity firm that invests in commercial field service businesses.
Hello, everybody. Vinnie D'Amore, class of 2015. I am a real estate, land use, and construction lawyer in Stamford.
Good morning, everyone. Cody Jones, class of 2013, and I'm an associate producer at ESPN.
To start us off, what were your interests or goals during high school, and how did that influence your college decision?
During high school, I was a big sports fan. I was also really involved in service here at Prep. Both attended and went on an urban plunge, went on the Kairos retreat. So I knew I wanted to go to a school that was similar to Prep in that nature, that offered those types of opportunities. So I ended up at St. Anselm College up in New Hampshire. And I knew that I was interested in going into media. They had a communication program there, so that was kind of where I got started there. Ended up getting involved in the school newspaper, managed the sports section, and that kind of led me on my path, which eventually led to ESPN.
I don't think I'm alone in saying that there's probably not a lot of you guys aspiring to be lawyers as you sit here today. But I sort of went to school not knowing what I wanted to do and sort of figured it out as I went. I also didn't have a job when I was going to graduate college, and so the default is to go back to school for 3 more years. And since then, I've just been sort of working in different areas of the law and sort of found my niche in real estate.
I'll be totally honest with you guys. I had no idea what I was interested in going into college, no clue, pretty lost. I was interested in sports in high school. I played baseball and football. But I think when I was trying to make the college decision, something I was very intentional about was trying to put myself in an uncomfortable environment, so I'd have to force myself to find things I was interested in and things that I'd want to pursue for a really long time. So my advice there would be, if you feel like there's other guys that have a clear path or know what they want to do, don't worry. It's totally normal to not know what direction you're heading in. It's actually pretty exciting.
In high school, I was pretty interested in finance, and I found a school that had a great finance program. So going into that, I knew that was something that I wanted to do, but I also kept my mind open in going into school and tried to take as many different classes as possible to really see what I actually liked, because I didn't, like you say, you like finance in high school, but you don't really know. So once you get into actually doing classes and stuff like that, then you can actually figure out what you actually want to do.
And then just for everyone, looking back, what do you wish you had known or done differently in high school to prepare for college?
I would have taken classes a little bit more seriously and actually focusing on what I wanted to learn about and trying to figure out what direction I could have gone in college. But then again, you have so much time to make a decision on what you actually want to do that it doesn't really matter. So
Yeah, I think I would have tried more things. I think there's a ton of clubs and extracurriculars here and classes and all sorts of different interesting arenas, and it can get really easy to just get comfortable with what you do, your friends, what they're doing. There's a great wide world out there, and I think it starts here. And having curiosity and showing up to that club you don't know anything about, or talking to that person you don't know, it's a skill and will serve you in the long run.
Yeah, I agree with Josh on that point. I mean, I think it's very easy to stay in your lane of what you really like to do and want to do while you're in high school. And college is a little bit different because a lot of you guys probably play a sport here that you will not play when you graduate. And so it's a matter of sort of finding different interests that didn't define you in high school. But aside from that, college is not much different than high school other than you don't have a bunch of teachers and parents over your shoulder making sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. And you have a lot more free time in college than you do in high school.
Yeah, I think kind of to echo some of the sentiments that have already been, kind of said, I think I just would have, maybe lived in the moment a little bit more, kind of embraced, putting myself in situations that, made me uncomfortable, that could have, allowed me to grow even more than I did in high school. I mean, there's a lot of good that I definitely got from my 4 years here, but, whether there was a club or another activity I could have been more involved in, I think that, just kind of that would have been really good.
How did you choose your college major, and was the experience what you expected?
So as I kind of said when I introduced myself, like I knew, starting out that I wanted to be in communication. I ended up sticking with it for 4 years, which I think is, somewhat rare. I think that you hear a lot of people like either starting undecided or switching majors, and that's totally fine. Like it's always good to try different things and make sure it's what you want to do and what you want to get out of it. For me, it definitely was the right fit. I had a lot of really good professors and, a program that really worked for me. But if that isn't the case, like that's not necessarily wrong. It's definitely good to kind of explore. It's okay to be undecided for a year and, try some different electives and maybe try to find your lane.
Yeah, I was sort of in that boat of being undecided when I first started out, and so I just took a bunch of general classes that everybody needed to take, and ended up liking some of the pre-law classes. So I ended up being a double major in legal studies and criminal justice, which frankly are very similar in the college curriculum realm. So it was just an easy way for me to graduate with 2 majors instead of 1.
Pretty undecided going in. I actually thought I was going to be a classics major. Shout out Mr. Bernier. Is he still here? That's too bad. But I think as I took more classes in different subjects in college, I settled on economics and political science, pretty broad, learn a lot within those majors and can do a lot of different things. I ended up being an English minor as well. I love my English classes both here and in school. I don't know if my majors specifically dictated what I went and did with my career thus far, but I think the skills I learned in taking some of them definitely informed.
So I, as I mentioned before, definitely wanted to study finance at school. I went to Boston College, so they have a great finance department. And then my freshman year, I took a computer science class, and I just fell in love with that as well. So I ended up initially wanted to double major in it, and after taking a couple more classes, switched that down to a minor. But they were really encouraging of studying subjects outside of the business school. So I would just recommend whatever, if you're set on something or want to study something, just keep an open mind because you never know what kind of class is going to pique your interest and what you're actually going to want to study.
You guys have talked a lot about how you have more free time in college, but I have a question about what challenges did you face transitioning from high school to college, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much free time that you have in the transition, and there's just a lot of things that you have to like take care of yourself, and there's no one that's gonna push you towards doing the right thing. So it's a matter of knowing what needs to get done and you being in charge of everything in your life and making sure that you're doing the right things to be successful at school.
I think it's all about taking risks and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. You guys by now have developed identities here. You play a sport, you're in a club, you have your classes you like, you have your friend groups. When you go to college, by and large, that starts from zero, and you got to reinvent yourself and figure out who am I here? Who am I going to be? And for me, I went to Georgetown. I had to try a bunch of different things out to figure out where I fit in and how I was going to express myself. So I think, again, building the muscle, building the skill of putting yourself out there when it's not obvious you're going to succeed, you'll probably fail. I think that's how you guys are going to figure out where you're going to thrive at the next phase. But again, it's an exciting moment in your life, and you have the opportunity to go write your story from scratch.
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, you have a lot of free time in college, but there's a lot of other changes too. I mean, for those of you that are going to go live not commute to school, you're going to be living with someone that you don't know and you're meeting for the first time, and 6 hours later you're going to be sleeping next to them. And so you have a lot of friendship dynamics that you have to navigate. You might despise that person from the very beginning. You might end up being best friends and be the best man at your wedding. But obviously, like Josh said, all your friend group here, by and large, is not going to be there with you when you go to college. So you have to navigate that. I would encourage everybody to just be themselves, not try to blend in with the crowd, especially at different schools. There's different crowds that are the popular ones. And that's not really where you need to be necessarily. The other thing too is just develop some healthy habits. As we've said, when you're in college, there can be days when you have 2 hours of actual class. Nobody's going to force you to go to them. Nobody's going to wake you up to go to them. And so you have to sort of take control of that situation. And then you have a lot of hours left in the day where some people can get into some pretty bad habits and go down the wrong lane. Or you can choose to, make good use of your time, develop good habits, good hobbies, make connections, make new friends.
Yeah, I think kind of building off that for me, it really took, a lot of time for me to, kind of get into a groove of the routine. Not to, kind of beat a dead horse, but like the amount of free time and just the lack of structure, you kind of have to make your own structure in college. That was something I definitely struggled with, and it didn't really hit as much freshman year. It was actually my sophomore year that I struggled with it more. And I think it was that I tried to, kind of do a little bit too much, and my academics struggled because of it, and I kind of had to figure out how to allocate my time. And, it was really junior year where I thought I hit my stride. That's when I was really involved with the newspaper. I also worked for Res Life. I had a lot of other things going on, and I kind of, figured out the balance of, this is what works for me with my academics and making sure I'm studying, getting my homework, everything else, in line there, but also balancing all the things I wanted to do outside of the classroom, and, really just kind of building forward and, developing into, the person I wanted to be.
You guys have talked a lot about being unsure of what you wanted to do after college. Were there any pivotal experiences, such as an internship, a club, or a specific class in college that helped clarify your career direction?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one thing I actually haven't talked about yet was I went to grad school after college, and I think that was really what kind of shaped things for me. So when I graduated, I wasn't entirely sure where I was going to end up, and as I mentioned, I was an RA with Res Life, so I was looking at jobs in Res Life. Ended up, getting a position as a hall director across town here at Sacred Heart as a grad hall director, and with that, I had to apply to a grad program, and they had a sports communication program there where I really, that's where I kind of built more of the foundation of what I do now in sports journalism, learning how to do the ins and outs of production and all that. And that kind of led to an internship, which I had there with an all-Connecticut sports show that was called CT Sports Now. And it just really kind of, gave me, the foundation and the building blocks of, what I do in my day-to-day life at ESPN. So that was kind of the biggest pivotal moment for me.
Yeah, I think for me, when I was in college, and I think it's probably the experience for a lot of these guys, and you guys will see eventually, but I think whether it happens here or in college, I think you'll eventually gravitate to one or two professors or classes that just you really enjoyed going to and you really enjoyed being there and learning about the topic. And that was the case for me. I was, like I mentioned, I was undecided sort of going in, and then ended up taking a few legal studies classes that just really piqued my interest, and that was what made the snowball, sort of get larger, and then I ended up going to law school and taking the bar, and here I am.
I would say for me, it wasn't so much the classes or clubs themselves that informed what I would go on to do as much as the people I met in them. So I worked at a student-run grocery store in college, and one of the guys there that was a couple years ahead of me helped me get the job I have now. And so again, I think this all comes back to the relationships you guys develop here in college. Those people are going to be important people in your lives for years and years and years. And you're going to learn a ton of new things. You guys are going to go do great things, but those people are the ones that show up at certain moments. You don't know when it's going to happen. But those relationships pay off. They're important, and so it's important to cultivate those and give 100% of yourself to your friends and the people that matter most to you.
Yeah, so I didn't know that I wanted to be an advisor or planner when I was graduating school, but it was a class that I took at BC, similar to the service that you guys are doing in your senior year, that really put an emphasis on the value of direct service and working directly with people. And I found that being an advisor and a planner, I can have a direct impact on my clients' lives to give them peace of mind in what they're doing. So the class that I took really pushed me towards wanting to do something with my career where I can directly help people and what I'm interested in, and know that I can help people directly with everything.
So as for internships, what was the process you guys went through to secure an internship in college? And what was the best advice you can give us based on the lessons you learned there?
I did not have great luck with getting internships in college, but the one great internship that I had, it came from the undergraduate job that I had. So I worked for the football team at BC, and I guess it was after my junior year. I didn't have anything lined up, but I was able to work with the people at my job to design an internship. So it's less about, or I would say it's more about the people that you know and leveraging the people in your community, and you'll be able to find opportunities to work with them.
Can you repeat the question? What was it? Internship? Yeah. We had a pretty robust internship program at my school. So for me, it was about making friends with the woman that ran the front desk there, making sure that any company showing up hit my radar. But I was lucky. Companies would show up, recruit on campus, and so for me, it was just about getting my name out there, getting my resume out there, meeting a lot of people. I got rejected from pretty much every internship I applied to, but got lucky with one, and that turned into another thing and another thing and another thing, and here we are.
Yeah, like both these guys said, I mean, most colleges will have some sort of career development office and probably some sort of portal that's going to be job interviews on campus, and a select few employers are going to be there. I did all of those. I did not get any of them. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that while it's a good resource, you don't have to rely on it. The 15 jobs that are on the college portal are not the only internships over the summer. Take the initiative, reach out to your contacts, your family members, friends, people that you meet through clubs. Like all the clubs will have guest speakers, this, that, and the other thing. Make sure you're networking. I mean, building a strong network will be very helpful. You also have the prep community, which has, I would argue, one of the best alumni networks, even on par with most of the big colleges. So lean on that. You don't have to rely on the career development office to tell you what jobs are open. You can do your own research too.
Yeah, I would say relationships are everything. So for me, with getting involved with the newspaper, the editor at the time was someone I worked with at a summer camp, and he knew I was interested in sports and said, "Hey, do you want to be my sports editor?" And I said, "Sure, that sounds cool." I had no experience. I didn't know what I was going to be doing with it, and it ended up being the best situation to kind of throw myself in, and I learned so much just through that and everything, but. Beyond that, with the other internship I had in grad school, CT Sports Now, it was just one that was a partnership with our program. And, a lot of programs will kind of have that where they know that there are a lot of, students previous before you that they'll go in and, kind of have those roles. And, it's good to kind of, continue to carry the torch there and all that. So, yeah.
How did you land your first job after college, and what was that process like? And if needed, how did you handle rejection?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, after college, I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do right out the gate. So I applied to a ton of jobs in Res Life. I think there were maybe 30 or 40 jobs I applied to, and I maybe heard back from, half a dozen of them, which is just kind of the way the job market goes. There's a ton of people kind of going for all the same positions. So, for me, it was just, kind of shake it off and, be patient for the opportunities when they do come and kind of make the most of them. So, it kind of was the perfect situation with Sacred Heart. They were looking pretty aggressively to fill a position because, they had someone leave late. They wanted to have somebody in over the summer. I went and interviewed. It felt like a really good fit on both sides, and it just kind of led things in the right direction. And then, during my 2 years there, I really knew that, with the grad program and everything, that sports media was what I wanted to do. And it was just, again, the same process of I applied to, leagues, teams, networks, kind of everywhere and anywhere. And, ESPN ended up an opportunity that ended up on my radar. I went and interviewed there. Initially didn't get the position, but kind of the same thing. I wasn't discouraged, and it ended up working out in the end. So.
Yeah, for me, I did not get a job after college. I went right back to school for 3 years. I went to law school. And so when I was in my second year there, I was waiting tables to get through. Ended up waiting on a gentleman who was leaving a larger law firm and starting his own firm, and I just said, "Do you need some help?" And I ended up becoming a law clerk there part-time through my second and third year of law school, and then just got offered a job after I graduated. I was there for about 8 months as an attorney, and then I joined the firm that I'm at now.
Yeah, I got a return offer for my internship, but just out of curiosity, show of hands, how many of you guys think you know what you want to do after you graduate college? It's more than I would have thought. The point I want to make is that you don't need to have that figured out. I've seen a ton of people, folks I graduated prep with, people I graduated Georgetown with, start down one path for internships, pivot to something entirely different. I think the point is you have time, and the important thing is to figure out what motivates you, what drives you, what you care about, what you're passionate about, and end up there eventually. Doesn't matter how long it takes.
So I did the thing that every single person will tell you not to do. I followed my girlfriend. She was going to go do her master's at school, so I went and moved in with her, and then got a job up by her school running a retail store, and I could sort of punt it on a year. And after that, I was able to leverage my network to find a tech sales job down in New York. But the good thing is it did work out. We're getting married in the spring, so if you do follow your girlfriend, at least make sure it's the one.
So, what skills or experiences from college have been most valuable in your professional lives?
I would just say it's learning how to interact with people, regardless of the walk of life that they come from. Just being able to have a nice discussion with anyone that you run into and being a nice person. That's the biggest takeaway I got from college.
Yeah, I'd say have an open mind. Don't judge a book by its cover. Put yourself out there. Take risks.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of people would say communication's probably one of the best skills you can develop before you enter what I'll call the real world. An important thing to know about communication is that listening is a large portion of that, and so you don't always need to be talking. Some of the smartest people in the room are the ones that are sitting there just soaking up everything. And so if you could learn to be a great communicator, I think it will go very far no matter what career you choose.
I think asking questions is always something that's important. That was something that I really had to kind of push myself to do. Like, you're not expected to know everything. And oftentimes when you're starting a new position, there's a lot that you're not going to know. So just kind of always being able to kind of lean on the people around you. The people around you in a good environment, they're going to want you to succeed. So, ask tons of questions and try to learn lots.
How do you define success now compared to when you were in high school?
Yeah, I mean, I think success now is, just I kind of look at every day as a new day. So when I walk into work every day, I don't really know what's going to happen. Like, I work on the overnight sports centers coming off big events. So I would define like a day of like a show of like, hey, we really crushed it today. We hit all of the big moments. We really told the story of the day. And personally, did I produce my area? Did I do my part in really kind of, driving that home? And also, I feel, if the group is if the show has a success and the people around me are doing their part, like, that's something that I really kind of embrace and I really feel really good about. So, not just personal, but also group success is important to me.
Yeah, that's a deep question. Whoever wrote that one gets a raise. I don't know. I don't know that I would technically say I define success differently at a very surface level. I mean, at the high school level, success to me was strictly sports related and doing well and winning. And frankly, that sort of translates into the work world in terms of you're not winning a game, but you're at least in my world, I'm representing people who are putting a lot of money on the line. And so a successful outcome for them is a success for me.
I think in high school, it's really easy to determine your success based on how you compare yourself to others. As you get older, as you become a professional, you have a family, success starts to mean more about what you're doing in your life and your security and what makes you happy and what you're passionate about versus what anyone else, your friends, are doing. And so for me, success now is just that. I try not to compare myself to others, because the danger with that is there's always someone else. There's always someone making more money or doing seemingly better or driving a nicer car. None of that matters. What matters is, do you wake up every day feeling excited about what you're going to go do in the world?
Yeah, very similar. I think in high school, you're kind of focused on, I want to go to the best school, I want to get the best job, I want to make the most money. And at this point, it's, am I happy to be going to work every day, and am I happy to be going home every day?
What is one thing you learned about yourself through your journey from a student to a professional?
I've learned that I'm quite, I thought I was a risk-averse person, but when I'm betting on myself, I know that I'm comfortable taking a lot more risks when I have control of everything. So, yeah, I've learned to become a lot more able to take on risk when I know that I'm betting on myself.
I think for me, it's resilience. I've faced a lot of rejection in my life up to this point, and expect to face more as life goes on. And I think you don't know how you're going to handle those situations until you're in them. And it's why what I was saying earlier, I really believe in firmly, which is get comfortable in uncomfortable situations. It's going to serve you really well in the long run. I think that's probably the number one thing I've learned about myself.
Yeah, for me, I think, like Josh said, it's a lot about perseverance and realizing your own capabilities. As you start in any new setting, your confidence is pretty low. You're in a new, a new area. You're the low man on the totem pole, and you don't realize how much you do know, but you also don't realize what you don't know. And so it's a lot about just personal perseverance. Really trying to develop and grow, and sort of curate your craft, and then eventually become confident in that.
Yeah, for me, I really enjoy helping others and really, seeing other people grow and develop. So as I've advanced in my career, and there are now people, that I'm working with directly in more of a supervisory role, I really enjoy lifting them up and really, kind of imparting the knowledge I have on them and helping them learn and grow and develop. And in doing so, I end up learning more about myself and learning from them. So just kind of having that, both ways, it's been really rewarding and something that I really enjoy.
And one last question. What is the biggest lesson that prep taught you that you carry with you through your personal and professional life?
Yeah, I think building off my last answer, it was, the biggest thing I learned from prep, obviously, this is going to be cliche, but, you're taught to be a man for others. And that's something that I really have carried into not only my professional life, but my personal life too. Just, always being kind to people, treating people with respect, and then, just kind of anything I can do to kind of, to be the helping hand for the other people on my team. That's really something that I've embraced.
Yeah, and just to sort of tag on that too, like prep is a brotherhood, and frankly, when you go into the workforce, there will be women there, so it will be more than a brotherhood. But it's a team setting, right? And it's about team success and contributing to something bigger than you, and bigger than your personal goals. And so when you're able to have that foundational, sort of mindset, where you work, what you do, and who you do it with will become successful at some point.
Yeah, I like what Cody said. It sounds simple, but treat people with kindness and respect goes a really long way. That's how you'd want to be treated. Outside of that, I'd say these people are really important. Never take them for granted. These are going to be your best friends for a really long time, hopefully forever. Invest the time and the effort to preserve these relationships. You guys are going to go all over the country, all over the world. You're going to separate. You're no longer going to be in the same building. It takes effort. It takes time. Don't forget that and make the investment.
Yeah, I think I touched on it before, but the value of direct service and helping people directly, it, one, obviously benefits them, but you also get a nice kickback of knowing that you're helping the people in your community. So, yeah.
All right, so now we're going to have a Q&A with the panelists and students. Just raise your hand if you have any questions.
I would say so, yes. What I'm doing now, I love what I do, and I am excited to go into work every day, and yeah.
I would agree, and I would say that you can have multiple passions, and I think for me, I work really closely with business owners of family-owned commercial service companies. I travel the country and hear their stories and get to understand from entrepreneurs what makes their businesses different. That's really special, and it's a thing that I enjoy doing. I'm excited to wake up and go do that. And I first had to put myself in a bunch of uncomfortable situations to know that was something I was good at and interested in. But yeah, I feel very fortunate for where I'm at today.
Yeah, for me, it's probably, frankly, not. If it was my true passion, I would be, in some pro sports circuit somewhere doing something a lot more fun. But my realistic passion, yes, in the work sense, I love what I do. I deal with different people every single day, whether it's someone buying their first house or selling their house and moving to Florida as a snowbird, or buying a commercial building for millions of dollars. And every day is different. Everybody has different problems, and they need help solving them. And I enjoy being there to do it.
Yeah, I would say for me, definitely is. I go to work every day excited, not knowing what the day is going to bring. And I try not to take for granted the fact that, I'm definitely very fortunate to be in the line of work that I'm in, where, I go to work at 5 o'clock at night and I watch sports, and I turn that into content that people consume. And that, there's definitely long days. There's definitely, I work holidays, I work weekends, but I knew kind of going into it that was all part of it. And it's just kind of taking a step back, reminding myself this is what I'm doing, and I definitely still enjoy it every day.
I would say find a group that you like. I think especially when you get out of college, you'll see that there's all sorts of different types of networking groups and all sorts of events that you can attend. But I would encourage you to be yourself, and other than that, it doesn't have to be a designated networking group, right? I mean, I was a hockey guy. I play men's league hockey still, and it might not seem like a networking group, but those are all contacts. Those are all networks that you can touch base with. And then the prep community, stay in touch with them. Everybody here, for the most part, will be back in this general area. And those are all contacts. And then the last one is probably family. You don't realize how many family members you have in different industries and with different experiences that might be able to help.
Great question. Thank you for asking. Cold email, cold call. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. I think we get in our heads a lot. We're scared of rejection. We don't want people telling us no. If you see someone doing something cool that looks interesting to you, give them a call. Shoot them an email. Shoot them a text. That's gotten me most of where I've gotten in life, and I think it's a real skill.
Yeah, I'd say, one, stay in touch with your friends here, like everyone said. But also, people are more willing to help you out than you probably think. So both people here and then people in your life, they're going to help you if you ask, but they won't help you if you don't ask. So you just got to ask.
I think if you're able to kind of have an internal network with wherever you're working to, that's also something that's really important. So like once you're in that first job, especially if you end up working for a large company, like set up a meeting with somebody that works for another department, learn what they do. Like I think just kind of starting those conversations like that could be something that's really important that can kind of help you kind of figure out what path you want to go down, but also just have a better understanding of what other people around have, and build those relationships, and that can kind of really benefit down the line when you're looking at other job opportunities, promotions, whatnot. I think that's also something that's important. So I think for me, like kind of one story I'll tell. So I started working at ESPN in 2019, right before the pandemic. August 2019, worked there for about 9 months. And the hardest day for me was in March of that year. I was offered a full-time position, and that very same night, Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19. The NBA shut down, and 2 weeks later, everyone in my group was, unfortunately, they said, hey, we got to take those offers back, but, and I ended up unemployed for a while. So I kind of had to really assess, is this what I want to do? Am I going to be able to get back there? Should I look elsewhere? And kind of just, I did a lot of internal reflection. I had a lot of time, obviously, during the pandemic because everything was shut down. We were all home. But I kept at it. In that time, I decided, yeah, I do want to still work in sports media. Luckily, I had a strong connection at ESPN, but I didn't just limit myself to that. I ended up applying to other positions in the interim, and I actually worked for CBS Sports for about 6 months on a remote job that it kind of came about because my brother, who works in the car industry, was selling a car to somebody who ran a department at CBS and said, hey, we're looking for people. And my brother mentioned, well, that I worked in the industry, kind of told him my story, and it ended up kind of working out that I was able to, connect with him. They offered me a position. I worked there, but as it went, I kept in contact with the people that I worked with at ESPN, and May of 2021, they ended up calling and saying, hey, we're hiring again. Are you interested? And I ended up back there, and the rest is history. So for me, it was just kind of not giving up in that moment, knowing that I still wanted to pursue that. That was still my dream. That was still my goal, and just kind of pushing through.
Yeah, so for me, it's, I always feel as though there's something bigger than me out there, and, people are depending on you. And so, like, my personal journey was, going into my third year of law school, my son was born. And so now I had, an infant at home, and 7 months before I had to take the bar exam, and not passing the bar exam that's offered twice a year was not an option for me, because if you don't do that, then you don't get a job, and now you have a 1-year-old at home with no job. So some of it's just necessity, and the fact that, there's a larger being out there, or, you have a family, you have a wife, you have kids, or beyond that, right? It's just sort of basic necessity, and I think the urgency gets bigger and bigger as you approach that deadline. When I was a senior in high school, I had not a care in the world. But when you're trying to get a job to pay bills, you have a little bit more of a passion burning to get it done.
I think the most important thing first is to acknowledge that hard times will happen. No one can avoid that. Might show up differently for different people. But important to remember, you have time. There is time to reinvent yourself. There's time to form new relationships. Great piece of advice I got once, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems in the moment. And so there will be times in your lives when it feels like the walls are caving in, everything's falling apart. Take time, take a deep breath, reset. Lean on your family, lean on your friends. They're there to help. They care about you. They support you. There's people out there that want to see you do well. And so just remember that. It's important perspective.
Yeah, I would say just have a deep belief in yourself and what you're doing, and knowing that what you're doing is right. The only time where I felt like disappointed or anything would be when I know that I didn't do enough, and I know that if I do enough to put myself in the right position to succeed, that eventually it's going to happen.
Here, another big thank you to all of our panelists for coming out today. Thank you, guys.